There are 5 areas that high impact, results producing, growth minded CEOs and entrepreneurs spend time. Regardless of where you're at, these 5 areas are the areas in which you will have the greatest impact per unit of time input. So the question is, how are you going to grow yourself? How are you going to deserve to grow your business, right? And that comes all down to the first of the 5 areas is mission critical. It's an area that often most people have no focus in this area. And that is number 1, there are 5 areas that high impact, results producing, growth minded CEOs and entrepreneurs spend time. And if you fall outside of these 5 categories of where you spend time, it means you're focused on busy work, not high impact work, not money making work, right? The biggest problem with being a CEO or an entrepreneur, whether you're an established entrepreneur or just getting started, or maybe you're in the mid stage, where you're in kind of the maturity stage of running your business where things are kind of stable, regardless of where you're at, these 5 areas are the areas in which you will have the greatest impact per unit of time input, because we're all playing a value in, value out game, right? If we spend time on low value things, meaning the inputs that we put into our business are low value inputs, we're going to get low value outputs. We're going to get low value results from a financial perspective, money, free time. But if we do high value inputs, we're going to get high value outputs. And these 5 areas are high value inputs. Now, the challenge with being an entrepreneur is most businesses start because the founder of the business is skilled at something. You know something. You have a gift in some area, right? So, if you were good at helping people, who are locked out of their car get into their car, right? Or if you're good at, helping someone who locked their front door get in their front door, then most people in that situation will become a locksmith, right? And then they'll take their skill, this thing that they're good at, being a locksmith, and they'll actually try to create a business out of it. And you're very often surprised when you realize that just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're good at running a business that provides that thing. They're 2 very different things, right? And this applies to really any service business, right? Someone who's good at cooking muffins ends up creating a muffin business. Someone who's good at coding computers becomes, if you become an entrepreneur, you start a coding business, right? And you see this across the majority of entrepreneurs. Now, why is that difficult? Well, because you're always going to be tempted to go back to what you know and what you were naturally gifted at, right? So you're always fighting against your skill, right? When you want to scale a business that produces what you're skilled at, that's very different than just doing the thing you're skilled at. And that's the big shift that most entrepreneurs don't understand. So these 5 areas allow you to truly be in the business owner, entrepreneur category rather than how you got started in business, which is you doing all the work yourself because you're an expert in something, right? So the first of the 5 areas is mission critical. It's an area that often most people have no focus in this area. And that is number 1, communicating a clear vision and goals. Communicating a clear vision and goals. That is the first role, responsibility, area of focus for someone who wants to be a high impact CEO or entrepreneur, right? Communicating a clear vision and goals, right? So the question to ask yourself is, what can I do now to create and communicate a clearer vision and goals around what's most important? So the first question to ask yourself before you can communicate a clear vision and goals is, do you even have for yourself a clear vision and clear goals? It's very hard to communicate clear vision and clear goals if you aren't yet clear on your vision and goals. So what is that for you? What is your 3-year vision? Is it documented somewhere? Have you emotionalized it internally? Do you feel like you would rather reach this vision or goal than you would breathe, right? Is it that important to you? Is it a life or death thing, or is it just nice to have, right? Because all the riches and all the greatness in life tends to flow to those who turn their shoulds into musts. The people who must achieve something tend to achieve more than the people who would just like to maybe achieve something, which is the majority of public. So communicating a clear vision and goals. What is the first step to getting clear on your vision? Well, it's reflection, right? You've got to spend some time with yourself in a unformatted environment. Maybe that's walking outside. Maybe that's, doing a meditation. Maybe that's, going on a vacation and spending a day with a notebook in front of the ocean and journaling out what you see as possible for yourself. What is essential for you to reach in the next 3 years? That becomes elements of your vision. You bucket all this together, you kind of pull it into one Word document, and you end up creating a 3 to 5 page, what I call a vivid vision, which ends up becoming like a PDF of exactly what your life is going to look like in 3 to 5 years from today, right? And that vision of where you're going in the future will not just drive you, but it'll become the lifeblood for everyone on your team when you're running a business. Where you're going, what you want to create is the most important thing, because if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there, right? And then goals are really, what are the milestones you want to hit on the way to that 3-year vision, right? So goals can be, what's your annual income goal this year? What's your annual free time goal this year in terms of how much free time you want to give yourself from the day-to-day of your business, if that's a goal? What's your annual profit goal, right? What is your, do you have quarterly goals on ways to improve your sales process, ways to improve your business's lead generation, ways to improve your average transaction value, et cetera, et cetera? Like, the bottom line is we have to know where we're going in 3 to 5 years. And then we have to have that broken down into 3, 6, 9, and 12-month chunks so that we know how we're going to pace our way to that 3-year goal and know when we're off track or on track for that goal. So it's one of the most important things to being a high-impact CEO and entrepreneur is knowing where you're going and communicating it. That's the second part. Like, once you're clear on where you want to go, how do you communicate your vision? Well, your vision should be your hiring screening process. It should be a part of how you screen people as to whether or not they work for your business, right? So as part of your interview process, 100% of people who interview with your business, they should have to read your vision. They should have to agree to your vision, right? They should have to say, yes, I want to become a part of this vision. I want to become a part of these goals. I believe in this, right? Other people who are going to be on your team, they're going to spend the majority of their waking life working as a part of your team. And to do that without a vision or without an intended impact, hard for people to do, right? Goals is how we hold people accountable, right? When you have clear goals to back up a clear vision, that's what allows us to really delegate to members of our team, right? Is we want to go from X to Y in a certain area of the business. How else do you delegate to someone else without having a clear goal, right? So goals are so important to not just be clear on, but to communicate as frequently as possible. Communicate during group meetings, communicate during all hands meetings, communicate during one-on-ones, communicate during as many touch points as you possibly can to everyone in your organization and everyone in your family, right? Be transparent about your goals and your vision with your family and add them into it, make them part of it, right? That's the first focus area of high-impact CEO entrepreneurs, right? Focus number 2 is investing in yourself. This is mission critical for someone who's in a CEO or entrepreneur role because your job is literally growth, right? When there's not many jobs that you can sign up for that you clearly don't have the experience for, right? So entrepreneurship is probably one of the only jobs where guaranteed most times the entrepreneur has not done what they're about to do, right? Okay, so why is that unique? Well, it's unique because what is the first thing we look for when we hire people in a business? We look for experience, relevant experience, right? Well, isn't it funny that typically the lifeblood of any business is started by someone who doesn't have experience running a business? Maybe they have experience doing the thing that the business provides, like the service that the business provides, but almost no entrepreneur who starts a business has pre-existing experience running a successful business, right? I know that wasn't the case for me, or it was the case for me. I did not have experience in business, right? So the question is, how are you going to grow yourself? How are you going to deserve to grow your business, right? And that comes all down to investing in yourself. So this is why this has to be a constant activity for a high impact CEO. How am I going to invest in myself next? What book am I going to read next? Which mentor am I going to seek out next? Which online course am I going to buy next? What information am I going to learn next to advance my business forward, right? How am I going to invest in myself in my business skills, but also maybe in my personal habits so that I can become more organized, better at priority setting, better at, communication generally. Even in my life, I need to be better at communication in order to be a more productive CEO and entrepreneur, right? So how do I invest in myself? How do I invest in my health? How do I invest in my relationships? How am I constantly investing in myself so I can bring my best self to what I do, right? I mean, think about how critical investing in your health is if you're a CEO. The average CEO works an average, I think it's like 80 hours a week or something crazy. And the reason that's important is because that's a lot of demand psychologically, physically. That's a lot of demand in every area of your life, right? So in order to withstand the demands of basically always being on call, you have to be in your peak optimal health, right? That means your nutrition, your fitness, your meditation, your mindfulness, your really every area of your health has to be operating in peak conditioning so that you can deserve to have the stick through itness, the ability to work long hours, have high emotional stress, and most importantly, be able to work in an area where nobody is giving you answers, right? When you run a business, you are the final decision maker for many things, right? And it all rests on you. And that emotional baggage and stress is something that you need to be resilient for, right? So investing in yourself is not just important from an information perspective, knowledge perspective, but also from a health perspective and relationships. I mean, think about this. Like, I was thinking about this morning, that a lot of the side businesses that SMBT, my company, has launched have come from relationships, right? So, Ethan Ostroff, who's my business partner in Attorney Assistant, which is our virtual assistant company, which is already an 8-figure company in 2 years from scratch, that company would have, we would have never partnered with Ethan had I not met Ethan, I interviewed him on my podcast. We hung out at my office. We stayed in touch every now and then. So that's an example of like a key relationship that led to a 8-figure business in 2 years, right? So investing in yourself means, not just investing in knowledge and information, not just investing in your health, but also investing in relationships. Anything that you can do to constantly be planting seeds in every area of your life is going to make you a better CEO and entrepreneur. Now, the opposite of investing in yourself is a period of reaping, right? And it's okay to go through a period of reaping what you sow, right? That is essential in certain time periods. Example, I like to use football as an example. It's a sport I love. Like in the middle of a Super Bowl, like the team is typically not investing in themselves during a Super Bowl, except for A.J. Brown. He's reading books during Super Bowls. But most of the other players who are in a Super Bowl, they are performing. They're no longer investing in themselves during a Super Bowl. It is time to perform. That's where a year of investing in yourself or years of investing in yourself then comes to fruition, right? So the unfortunate thing is some business owners never give themselves the time to invest in themselves because they're so damn busy. They're so damn focused on what's right in front of them that they stop learning, they stop reading, they stop seeking mentors, they stop investing in relationships because they're so on call for the business's demands that they lose track of investing in yourself. And this is a surefire way to guarantee that your business doesn't grow, right? So you want to be aware of this. As soon as you stop investing in yourself, you will see a business that stops growing. Bottom line, 100% of the time, if you see a business that's not growing, there's really only two inputs for that. Either you have the wrong product or industry, or B, the owner stopped growing. And the owner stopping growing is honestly what causes the selection of the wrong product or industry, because someone who's constantly growing is constantly innovating their business model. They're not just settling with whatever their business model was, 24 months ago, just because that's what it is, right? So investing in yourself is the second area of high impact CEO entrepreneur focus. Number 3 is recruiting, training, and retaining A players. This all has to do with team, right? In business, this is part of the thing that's made me, successful in business, really, is I understand that business is a team sport, right? That's why we have 150 people at my company in just, 8 years, is I've understood very quickly that this game in business is about not me doing all the work myself. It is about having the best possible team I can possibly have so that we can multiply genius to our clients rather than just have it all depend on me, right? So recruiting, training, and retaining A players is a third pivotal focus. If you were to only spend time communicating a clear vision and goals, investing in yourself, and recruiting, training, and retaining A players, think about it. You're going to know exactly where you're going in the future. You're going to have the skills to get there because you're investing in yourself, and then you're going to have the team to do the work for you, right? Or with you, really. So recruiting, training, and retaining A players is a top-notch priority. Anytime you stop focusing on recruiting A players, you're going to start recruiting B players. Anytime you stop focusing on training your team and getting your team sharper, your team's going to flatline. Anytime you stop focusing on retaining A players on your team, you're going to lose A players on your team, right? Because you're not worried about the long term. You're not worried about the team aspect of your business. And it's so critical to always be focused on up-leveling the value of your team and making sure that the best people on your team always have a path to stay on your team. Now, the opposite of this also applies, is letting go of underperformers, right? It's almost impossible to retain A players if you have a bunch of C and D players on your team, because A players do not want to be around C and D players. It just is what it is, right? So if you think about it, like, as much as you want to bring great people on the bus, you also want to get people off the bus who are not great, right? And you need to do it aggressively because it's not comfortable to have tough conversations with people who are underperforming, but it's essential if you want to have the best people stay on your team. So I'm always trying to focus more on vision and goals, more on investing myself, more on my team and getting A players on my team, because I know if I focus on the team aspect, things are just going to become easier. There's some people who legitimately claim that your business success is in direct proportion to the quality of the people on your team, right? And I tend to believe that that's true, especially in service businesses. I think if you're in a technology business and you have the best technology or app ever built and it goes viral and you have platform effect from it and blah, 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 if that happens, you could probably get away with some bad apples on your team because the product is in such demand, it's so unique, it's so differentiated that people just have to stay there, right? Not just people need to stay there. Customers keep buying the stuff, and even mediocre people can serve customers who are begging for a product or service, right? So recruiting, training, retaining A players always has to be a number one high top focus of a high impact CEO and entrepreneur. All right, focus number 4, something I always try to come back to, try to not lose my focus on, is what I call managerial finance, okay? So managerial finance is very different than accounting, right? Oftentimes we've equated in our minds that accounting or the financial aspect of the business is really just about like logging into your bank account and counting. That's why it's called accounting, right? It's just counting dollars in, dollars out, right? That is not managerial finance. Managerial finance is making high quality decisions from your finance data. Okay, so reviewing your finance data, looking at it closely, analyzing your numbers, knowing which numbers you like, which numbers you don't like, and making decisions on those numbers, especially investment decisions, right? Not just cost-cutting decisions, but investment decisions, right? Decisions of commission, not omission or cutting, right? So we want to make investment decisions. We want to know what to double down on, right? And there's a reason that companies who are doing $100 million a year are typically spending much more than businesses that are making $10 million a year, right? Why? Well, because the $100 million business is investing in more stuff. They're making more investment decisions. So typically, you'll see a $100 million business spending something like $80 million a year in expenses, and you'll see a $10 million business spending $8 million a year in business, and you'll see a $1 million business only spending $800,000 a year, and you'll see a $100,000 a year business only spending $80,000 a year, right? Or spending nothing because, you know, with $100,000 a year, you can't really survive on that. So there's no way you'd spend 80 unless, you know, you don't want to live. You don't have money to live. But you get the point, is the bigger the company, the bigger the investments. Now the question is the chicken or the egg. Is the reason the company is bigger because it's investing more, or is the reason the company is bigger because or is the business investing more because the company is bigger, right? So I tend to think that the reason the company is bigger is because it's investing more, right? Because most times people who scale businesses, they're not waiting for some, you know, lightning beam moment where all this cash just gets wired to their bank account in some like dramatic event. No, typically the people who build bigger businesses, they make bigger investments and they then deserve a bigger business because their bigger investments paid off, right? So managerial finance is really making investment decisions based on data. It's not just counting numbers. It's not just looking at your financial statement and being dissatisfied once a month, or occasionally running out of money and, you know, not being able to make payroll and freaking out about it. Managerial finance is proactive investment-based decisions on things you want to double down on, things you want to optimize away from. I hate saying cost cutting, as you can tell, because it's more about optimization. It's the things that you're investing money in that are not producing a tangible outcome. They need to be, over time, optimized. You have to optimize those expenses to then take dollars and deploy it into better allocations of resources, right? So managerial finance. This is something I spend every single week focused on. I meet with our finance and data team probably more than I meet with any other team in our entire company, because money is the lifeblood of any business. If the business doesn't have money, there's no ability to have employees. There's no ability to afford everyone's salaries, give everyone a livelihood at your business, invest in research and development, and improve your products and services. There's no way to do any of this. So your business is dead in the water if you don't have managerial finance down as one of your top focuses. So you always want to be focused on managerial finance because that is where biggest leverage decisions typically come from when you make investment-based decisions. Last but not least, the fifth area of high impact CEO and entrepreneur focus that I found is brand expansion and revenue generation. So how do I expand my brand? How do I enhance my sales, marketing, advertising, and content strategy? How do I get my brand out in front of more people, right? This is another very, very high level focus for many CEOs and entrepreneurs that always pays dividends. Instead of thinking, how can I sign up one client, right? Because I need some money this month. Instead of thinking like that, thinking, how do I sign up my next 100 clients? How do I get 1,000 clients? How do I get known by tens of thousands of or even millions of people in my industry? How do I become a household name in my industry? How do I expand my brand so if you are in my industry, you literally have to say no to my brand because you have seen my ads, you've seen my brand so many times that it's not, oh, do I know this company? It's, oh, I know of them and I decided against using it. I'd rather be in that area of where everybody in my industry knows our name, knows our company, and they have to select out of working with us rather than opt in to working with us. That's the side I want to be on. So brand expansion, revenue generation. This is, can I get on more podcasts? Can I put out better content? Can I put out more content? Can I put out content on different channels? Can I increase my advertising budget? Can I add the platforms that I'm advertising on? Can I create new video ads? Can I create a new lead magnet? Can I create a new webinar? Can I create a new virtual event, in-person event? Can I sponsor events in my industry? Can I send salespeople out to events? Can I hire 100 salespeople? Can I hire 10 salespeople? Can I hire 20 salespeople? Like, these are big revenue generation, brand expansion decisions that always have to be a focus of the CEO and entrepreneur because, again, your job is growth. This is why it's mandatory that you invest in yourself because if you've never scaled a sales team before, if you've never done any of these things that are required to grow your business, then you better be learning about these things obsessively, right? So that you can deserve to expand your business in the areas in which you want to. So the 5 areas that we talked about today that high impact CEOs and entrepreneurs focus on. Number 1 is communicating a clear vision and goals. Number 2 is investing in yourself. Number 3 is recruiting, training, and retaining A players. Number 4 is managerial finance. And number 5 is brand expansion and revenue generation. Now, nowhere in these 5 areas does it say doing individual client work. Nowhere in these 5 areas does it say doing individual sales calls with clients. Nowhere in these 5 areas does it say anything about doing day-to-day, low-impact activities. These are the 5 high-impact multiplier, growth-focused activities that growth-minded CEO entrepreneurs spend their time in. So, if you look at your week, you look at your next week or this past week, I want you to challenge yourself to start seeing more time spent in you getting clear on and communicating your vision, more time spent investing in yourself, more time spent recruiting, training, and retaining A players, more time spent on managerial finance, and more time spent on brand expansion, revenue generation activities. And I promise you, if you start spending time in these 5 areas versus where you've been spending time, you're going to be like, where the heck did all this growth come from? Because the outcome will be phenomenal for you when you start investing time in these 5 areas. So this has been a hard reflection and lesson for me to learn this from making a ton of mistakes of spending time and money in the wrong areas in my business. So hopefully you can learn from my own scar tissue in terms of where I've really wished I spent more time. And you can spend more time in those areas right now. Nothing's stopping you. So hope you got value from this episode, and I will see you in the next one on the Bill Hauser podcast. Stay great. If you found value in this podcast, here's one way I can help your firm right now. First, you can get our new book, Law Firm Growth Accelerator. It's everything we've learned over 10 plus years helping lawyers build thriving, profitable firms. The strategies that you'll get in this book work for any practice area and any revenue level. You can get the audiobook and ebook 100% free, or just cover the shipping and we'll send you the physical copy to you in addition to the audio and ebook. Go to smbteam.com/book to get your copy.